meeting of council of March 15. One change to the already amended agenda here is that to 6.1, the Harbor Authority is not able to join us tonight, so we won't have that delegation. So with that exclusion, just ask for a motion to approve this amended agenda that we have. Councillor White, thank you. Councillor Valaria, thank you. Favor? That's carried. So one set of minutes to adopt there from March 1st. So again, just ask for a motion to adopt those minutes. Councillor Sanjanko, Councillor Valaria, all in favor? That's carried. Any inquiries at this point? Okay, there'll be further opportunity. 8.1.1. Just ask for a motion to receive the minutes of the special committee of the whole of March 1, 2016. Councillor Sanjanko, Councillor Valaria, all in favor? That's carried. 8.1.2, one recommendation coming out of there, directing staff to draft an amendment to the rates, fees, and charges bylaw for consideration based on a proposed water rate structure for the purpose of achieving the revenue goal of a 13% increase over 2015. Councillor Barry, who's that? Second. Councillor White. Anything else? All in favor then? Okay, and that's carried. 8.2.1, just a motion to receive the minutes from the committee of the whole meeting of March 1. Councillor Lumley, Councillor Sanjanko, all in favor? That's carried. 8.2.2, suggested smoking control bylaw. Recommendation here that staff be directed to draft a smoking control bylaw for council's consideration based on the regulations of the Tobacco Act as well as expanded local regulations as suggested by Vancouver Coastal Health in order to promote a smoke-free community. I have a mover for that, Councillor White. Second, Councillor Valaria. Any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor then? It's carried as well. 8.2.3, possible sites for cluster housing. The council requests further review of the Charming Creek lands and White Tower Park as possible locations for a cluster housing project by the Sunshine Coast Affordable Housing Society. And staff be directed to request the Sunshine Coast Housing Society and Click Homes to bring back financial analysis of the proposed affordable housing development of the Charming Creek lands and White Tower Park sites to a future committee of the whole meeting. Hey, that's going to be sort of superseded by what happened today, I think.
I suggest we just
yeah,
these ones.
You don't have to adopt those.
yeah, okay, let's leave that because of the discussion that transpired at the committee earlier today. And I guess 8.2.4 I put in the same category then. That's to arrange the tour that we already had. Attempts. So we'll just leave those. 8.2.5, and the recommendation there is that the updated inspection and maintenance of sidewalks and trails 4.8 policy be adopted. Councillor White, second. Councillor Sanjanko. Anything on that? No? Okay, all in favor then? And that's carried. 8.2.6, well, we've had a lot of discussion about consideration, and that's the policy 4.3, sprinkling regulations be repealed, and that the revised water use and conservation policy 4.15 be adopted as written. Mover, Councillor White. Second, Councillor Valaria. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, that's carried. 8.3, special committee of the whole budget meeting. That's from earlier today. So first of all, just a motion to receive the minutes of that meeting then. Councillor Sanjanko, Councillor Valaria, all in favor? That's carried. 8.3.2, council directs staff to draft an amendment to the rates, fees, and charges bylaw for consideration based on the proposed sewer rates structure for the purpose of achieving the revenue goal of a 7% increase over 2015. Mover, Councillor White. Councillor Valaria, any discussion on that? Okay, all in favor then? And that's carried. 8.3.3, road repaving strategy report. We had a very lengthy discussion on this earlier today. So the recommendation there is that staff be instructed to include budget for patching as well as priority 1 and 2 paving options in the 5-year capital plan Instructed to prepare road maintenance policy for council's consideration. Instructed to include cost and implications of including a chip sealed road component in the 2016 general budget. And directed to develop a public engagement process to engage the Hillcrest Road neighborhood in 2016 regarding status quo versus chip seal paving options. Moving that, Councilor White. Second, Councilor Valeria. Sorry. Okay, good discussion.
I just to make it. I know that there was when you prepare your recommendation or the budget preparations, there was a goal or like a necessity of maybe 550 for the meeting today, but you say okay 270, and just to be clear, like when I was saying that with that new process that you want to do, I was almost thinking that would be, an add-on. I'm not sure if, like, if there's a minimum road maintenance, and then you're gonna try that. Did I get that wrong, or?
So as it sits right now, the way I understand it is there's going to be a budget put forward for road patching. There will be a budget put forward for priority 1 and 2, and then the chip seal, which actually largely fell in the priority 4 roads, would be an addition. The only kind of revision to what I was proposing to put forward was that Hillcrest was actually in 2020 and being proposed as a full road rebuild, and I would change that to the chip seal option. If I understood correctly?
Yeah.
And this is only a draft budget coming forward, so even if we get it wrong or you have some second thoughts, nothing's cast in stone. So we just bring it back forward or bring it back to you for discussion.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, all in favor then? Okay, that's carried as well. 8.4.1 zoning amendment for 624 Farnham Road. This was the zoning amendment bylaw being forwarded to council for consideration. Public hearing date of April 5, 2016 at 6:45. Be set to consider input on that, and the recommendations above be forwarded to the meeting are here. So this is the property that was formerly occupied by the Sunshine Coast Community Services Society and is currently vacant. Okay. Councillor White, second. Councillor Lumley, all in favor then? Okay, that's carried. 9.1. Okay, so Andre, you want to speak to this again?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This follows up on a recommendation from a couple of months ago to report back on options to discuss intentions about any future OCP amendments for additional height in the Gibsons Harbour area, and provided some context to the Harbour area plan in the report, and quoted the policy that's currently in place after the adoption of the bylaws for the George, which allows, this is a fairly new policy that specifies the number of stories that we expect on sites in the Harbour area, and it now includes that the one exception for the George. And there's one other application already in the pipeline, although it hasn't been moving forward lately. That's for Seaglass. They're at first reading for their OCP amendment bylaw. The options that you have, the report has some information from our legal counsel, and one of the basic things that council, I guess, should be aware of is that anybody could make any application, and in some shape or form that needs to be considered by council, so it's a legal requirement. At the same time, depending on where council wants to go with this, there are options to have a process in place to deal with those kinds of applications. Right now, applications, if they're applied for, they go through the regular process, and pretty early on in the process they come to council, but usually after the ABC has had a look at it and after referral agencies have had a look. One of the options that council could consider is for this particular type of changes that first it goes to council for an initial review, and that could give further direction for the review, if it will proceed or not. So I have an alternative recommendation for that at the end of the report that you may want to look at if you're interested in that. And with that, other than that, the recommendation is to receive the report, and I'll welcome any suggestions or questions you may have.
And thank you, Andre. Questions or comments on that? Councillor Valeria?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate staff giving this the thought that I think it warranted, and I'm impressed with the solution that's contained in the alternative recommendation. My feeling is, and I don't want council to enter into stepping on staff's toes before we should, and I guess that argument could be made, but I feel like this coming to council for initial review before it goes out to to an APC or to referral where it's sort of in the public realm, but not necessarily. I just believe it's good to get these out in the open. Obviously, it's contentious, and staff can consider it, give it due consideration at that, or council, sorry, can give it due consideration and then at least set the tone. So, I'd like to move the resolution on the last page. Maybe I'll make that motion. So council resolve for the remainder of this council term, any new OCP amendment applications for additional height under primary policy be forwarded to council on receipt for initial review and council direction regarding the application.
Seconder for that. Okay, so comments or questions or discussion? Councilor Sanjanko,
Thanks for the report back. I was actually curious if there were going to be some other options. I'm open to seeing any of these applications right from the get-go, just so we are clear and what's coming in the pipe, and we know what's there, and that we can be as efficient as possible and communicate it right from the beginning. So I'm definitely open to hearing what other members of council think of this alternative. And,
Councilor White.
I still feel that how we communicate our vision for the town, including this policy on height, which is in the OCP and included in this report, is communicated through the OCP, and that should really be what guides the process. And if we, I'm concerned that this recommendation almost could be, and I don't think this was the original intent, but it could be taken to the opposite intent, taken backwards, that we're very open to varying from the OCP, and that's why we'll look at variations right away before the process even starts. So I'm concerned about that perception. I don't think that was the intent in Councillor Valerius' initial hopes of bringing up this motion. So that's why I'm not supportive at this point. I'll listen to discussion. But I think we have an OCP, and it's very clear, especially with the updated language on our community's expectations, and that's what we should rely on.
I think what we're trying to deal with here, Councilor Valeria, quite properly brought this one forward, I think, is, and as the staff report indicates, we do have to consider an application for amendment. We don't statutorily, we must. So the question is, do you wait till it's gone through quite a process in terms of staff and developers' time and so on before we even look at it? Or, as I believe Councilor Valeria is trying to suggest here, is let's at least see it in the very early stages so that we can sort of say, okay, it merits more work, or or it's just something that's not gonna likely fly under any circumstance. That's what I'm understanding the purpose of the motion to be. Mr. Lumley?
I somewhat agree, Mr. Mayor, with you, because of where things are located in the terrain. And, I don't have a problem with this recommendation. It would probably take a little bit of pressure off staff, I would imagine, or, speed up the process, which I'm all in favor of, for the fact that, you know, if a project like Sea Glass, okay, although who knows where it is, right? But, you know, they're, because of the terrain or because of the back side, you're looking at an amendment to an OCP, but you're really not, you know, if you're saying like it's 6 stories instead of 4 stories, well, the embankment is already 6 stories, right? So I think in that case, like a recommendation like this, I could support it because maybe you're alleviating some of those processes that are gonna slow something down by just saying, okay, well, this is just common sense. We don't think that an OCP amendment would be like a major revelation, you know. It's certainly not as big as you know, something like the George Hotel. So anyway, I would think that maybe this would speed up a process, which I would be all in favor of.
Any further comments? Councilor Zanjanko?
Yeah, I just want to echo that, I'm not as, I think it's potentially being more efficient with staff time, but it also gets the process into communication, because if it comes to a meeting, and the media is here, so it's pretty apparent right from the get-go, just sort of what's, I said, you know, coming down the pipe, and it just opens up the communication right from the get-go.
Any particular drawbacks from staff's perspective that you see with respect to this, even though it's your recommendation? Is there anything that causes you concern?
Not particularly. I added in for this council term because I didn't want to have a council motion from years back that maybe said something like this, but then future plans may not be aware of it. So I think for a limited period of time, this would work. If it would be for a very long term, then I would recommend to change the OCP again. But I think this is a good solution, and that I think also relates to what perhaps Councillor Valeri was trying to convey.
Nothing else then? Okay, so if nothing, no further discussion, then I will call for a vote on that. So all in favor then? Okay, opposed? Okay, so that's carried. Councillor White opposed. Okay, thank you for that. Any inquiries at this point? There's one over there.
Katie Janet. My question relates to the last motion, looking at it from the APC perspective. I'm curious as to how you see the discussion that takes place at council at the very beginning of an application affecting how the APC looks at a particular development application, because I wouldn't want to think that, I mean, we're supposed to make recommendations to council, so if it comes to the APC after it's come to council, I wouldn't want to think that we were hamstrung by that in some way or another, so can you address that?
Yeah, it's really hard to say. I guess in my vision of it would be that if it was something that council thought, okay, this is actually over the height, maybe a little bit over the height, then might otherwise be considered under the OCP. I would see it from, if council was saying this is something that we probably should look at, I would see it going pretty much straight to the Advisory Planning Commission from that point. I think it's more, I'm going to suggest that it's more concerned here was if somebody comes forward with a proposal for 6 or 7 stories or something like that, council may want to be in a position to say, we're not even going to waste APC's time on this, we're not going to waste staff time on this, it's a no-go. That's how I see that, as opposed to setting that to the advisory planning commission for. But that's just, my picture of it, I must say. So I don't see taking the APC out of this process by a long shot. So.
Mayor and Council, my name is Judith Bonkoff and I live in Gibsons. Just another question about this recommendation that's just being put forward here. And of course I can't see it, so I don't know what it is exactly. But I'm just curious about the advisory council, the planning committee, council, commission. Okay. Which of course I'm not sure has more authority in other communities other than ours. But I would like to see that that they would have more clout, and that before it went to council, these plans would be looked at, would be able to be thoroughly looked at as far as our OCP goes. Because once it goes to council, we got 8 stories or whatever, because it's great, it's a great plan, but it doesn't suit our community. And I really feel that, I wonder why, my question is, that our advisory planning commission can't have more clout.
I'm going to take a stab at that, but the staff may have to help me. I believe with all advisory planning commissions, they are simply that, advisory, that they don't have any authority other than to recommend to whatever governing body they report to what their recommendations are with respect to a particular application. Now, is that a correct statement, or am I off base? Right?
The short answer is my interpretation as well, is that your interpretation is correct, and that there's a limitation to how much power can council give to another body behind itself. Certainly not giving powers above those that council has in legislation onto an advisory body in particular.
Right, yeah, my recollection is there's a prohibition against delegating the authority of council, as I recall. So matters that would clearly fit within the OCP would probably, and again, Andre, correct me if I'm wrong, would probably follow the usual route of going through staff and OCP and the Advisory Plan Commission before they ever come to council. Would that be correct? So Councilor Valeria's motion here really is only trying to look at situations where clearly the proposal exceeds the height that's expected by the OCP, and trying to give some indication early on before it gets too far down the road whether there's even likely to be considered. It's sort of what the hope is, shall we say. Okay, we have 2 items of correspondence there, just to a motion to receive those, please. Councilor White, Councilor Valeria, all in favor? That's carried. I don't think the wine and grocery stores is affecting anything here at the moment, is it, to my knowledge? Right?
Not at all.
No.
No applications.
Okay. And the audit planning report, Ian's just basically telling us what they're going to be doing.
That is correct. It was the audit's happening this week, and it was my intent that I would have liked the senior auditors to have opportunity to produce this or present to council. This is a communication tool of theirs to advise council, and essentially if there are any concerns of council for you to report to them. However, the senior auditors are arriving tomorrow, so it's as you say, it's really a communications tool for council to have their information and to receive.
Okay, so we can move to 12.1 then. And then just ask for a motion to adopt the rates, fees, and charges amendment bylaw. Councilor White, Councilor Valeria, all in favor, and it's carried. 12.2, this is the Farnham Road property we talked about earlier that was formerly occupied by the Sunshine Coast Community Service Society. So this is just to give it first and second reading for rezoning. Councillor Valeria, Councillor White, all in favor? And that's carried. Unanimous consent of council is required to give first, second, and third readings in one meeting to the rates, fees, and charges bylaw, which is so 12.3. We've asked for that motion. Councillor White, Councillor Valeria, and then all in favor. So that's unanimous. Okay, so then that takes us to 12.4, which is to give first, second, and third reading to the rates, fees, and charges amendment bylaws. Again, Councillor White, thank you. Councillor Sandrito, all in favor, and that's carried. Any inquiries at this point? Did I miss something?
Yes, just the setting of a special meeting, if you could resolution to start that.
Oh, okay, yes, thank you. So the special council meeting be scheduled for 1:30 on March 29 to adopt the rate, fees, and charges bylaw. Yes, thank you. Mover of that, then Councillor Sanjanko, Councillor Lumley, all in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, so council reports. Councillor White, do you wish to add anything to yours? Before you do, I want to commend you on advancing the town's interests. I see that through your report. You take a very good position on behalf of the town, so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. And I try to consult and listen to everybody else around this table as much as I can. And I take positions with the SCRD, including on transit, which is one I mentioned. And Councillor Lumley often talks my ear off about transit, so I represented his position at the SCRD, which I was trying to do. Yeah, there are, in the very last sentence, there are numbers about where our tax is. Those are updated, and I've sent around a document today. I think they are actually, when I say it's a 2.04 is the overall change in taxation, and it's a minus 2.84, which is the residential property change in taxation. So those numbers ended up being, and that's not the budget, as I mentioned in my report. That budget hasn't passed yet, but it's going into it's finished through round 2 of discussion, so that'll come to the board at the next meeting.
Well, considering the challenges that the regional district was facing transit and with the fire fighting budget and others, and given the closure of Fort Mellon, or part of Fort Mellon, I'll have to commend the board. I think they've done a very good job of holding the line. They need to be congratulated when that's appropriate, and this certainly would suggest that. So good job.
I'll pass that on. I'm very pleased with how it turned out.
Yeah. Okay, and I don't think I have any other questions. Yeah, the fire chief's workshop. There's going to be some further work around them talking about more regional cooperation around that. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I can provide an example even, and that's that one budget request was for so there's a bit of a legacy piece here where Bob Stevens, Chief Bob, was a heavy duty mechanic. So he actually did work on the equipment at the fire hall, and because he's gone, the fire department needed funding to contract somebody to take that place, and it was a significant request and understandable. However, the SCRD is now working to actually look after the trucks centrally at their West Sechelt shop, which is where they've also got heavy duty mechanics there who work on buses. So they're fully qualified to work on this mission office equipment as well. So that's one example that's already happening. And, we're looking at other areas like that. And, CAO Levies has quite a bit of experience in working with fire departments in the past, so it's really taken this on and it's going well.
Okay, Councillor Valeri, is there anything you wish to add this evening?
Yeah, I think I'll get back to a written report for March, but just wanted to let council know that I had the pleasure of attending day and a half of the Globe conference at the Vancouver Convention Center. I got to see our CAO, a star on the global stage amongst executives from TD Bank and other CEOs, and I have to say it was remarkable. It really laid out our eco asset program. I think there was a couple of Twitter quotes, but one of the obvious messages is if a small town like Gibsons can consider natural capital, then everybody can. There was a lot of enthusiasm for those ideas coming out of our town, so we should be proud. Attended a full day. I've got too much here, I'll probably write some of it down, but there was an excellent session on zero waste. And just one takeaway, even the chair of the National Zero Waste Council, who's some in this community would probably consider a fake zero waster, acknowledge that it's too easy and cheap to throw things in the garbage, and I think that's Councillor White's chairing of our zero waste committee probably needs to start. It's one of the starting points that we need to compensate for that ease. So there was an incredible amount of leading edge, kind of high level material on sustainability, but it was a day well spent, and Gibson's got a lot of attention.
Yeah, thank you for that report. And I think people in our community perhaps don't realize the stature that Manny has in this field, both nationally and to some extent internationally. However, there will not be a raise. But we do very much appreciate your representation of the town of Gibson. So thank you. It's not unnoticed. Councillor Lumley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick points. I was at the fire hall with Councillor White, and it still amazes me the dedication these people have. I'm not sure where it comes from, but they're in there like so many hours a day, and they, repairing leaks and stuff like this. It's really beyond themselves to do it, but they believe in it a lot. So it's really amazing every time you go in there to see what these guys are working with and how much they get done. I appreciate also his Councillor White's voting against the transit. I guess you were the only one, but anyway, he's carrying the torch for these giant empty buses running around the Sunshine Coast. So, and which is one of my things. I'd really like to see that change. And also zero waste. I attended the first zero waste committee meeting, and I was extremely impressed with the people that are sitting on that committee. It was really good to see. And there's some really great things that came out of the first meeting. So I'm looking forward to what the recommendations that come forward to council from that. Also, I would like to, I know people may have taken notice that the midget, the provincial finals are in Gibsons as well. And there's a lot of energy. I think Sunday, our lunch crowd was full of people from all over BC. And it was really nice to see, and they're pretty excited. And I went down and watched a game last night. The Sunshine Coast Blues played Kelowna, and the arena was full of people, and it was just nice to have a buzz. It's like that energy when you go in there, you can just feel it. It kind of uplifts you. So it was nice to see that in Gibsons for sure. And lastly, I just wanted to comment on the APC just from this meeting. And I know you guys can't attend every meeting, but I don't know if it's clout or weight, but there's a proposal that we've discussed about benches and about advertising and stuff. And Councillor White brought up the idea, and I'm pretty sure that we are in agreement with it, that we could use the ACP's input on something as maybe as small as, and maybe not everything can be all these massive projects, but as small as like 8 community benches, we would like to hear some input. I don't know if it's clout, but I think it's just, we look forward to community input from the people that sit on the APC. So I'd just like to add that. And that's it. Well,
Thank you, Councillor Sanjay.
Just wanted to use my report tonight for a couple of reminders of AGMs that are coming up. And one is the Gibsons Chamber of Commerce on Friday evening at the Sunshine Coast Golf Club, and that starts at 5:30. And the other is the SOAN AGM. That's the Self-Employed Women's Network, which is coming up April 14th from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Seashell Region. And you don't have to be self-employed or a woman to attend and support their AGM. I wanted to just bring those two up.
I don't have anything to report on tonight. Manny, did you provide these press releases to the?
Not yet.
No, okay, so just as we're about to close, we will pass out press releases to the press, one with respect to Gibson's public market and one with respect to a petition that was recently filed in the BC Supreme Court.
Something in my report that I don't want to forget about, and that was the suggestion that we invite Chief Michael to give us an update on his early months at the fire department and a discussion of what their plans are in the budget. I don't know if we need a formal motion to do that.
I think just a notation, if that would be noted there. Yeah, I think it's important to do because the town of Gibsons actually contributes about 50% of that budget. So I think it's important that we hear directly from the chief. So
he actually suggested it to me, so he's
okay,
going to present to us.
Manny or Celine, if you would take note of that. Okay, so with that, just ask for a motion to close a couple of items there under 901C and G. Councilor Valerian, Councilor Sanjanko, all in favor, and that's carried. So we'll just break for about 5 minutes.